How do you try to cash out in mathematics naturalistically?
Man, I don't know. The philosophy of math is the thing that bugs me the most, honestly, that I don't have any strong feelings about. I have what I want to believe, which is kind of a nominalism, an if-thenism about mathematical results, that I can sort of invent any system of axioms I want and then prove theorems based on those axioms. And the theorems that I prove have the kind of truth that they have is, well, if the axioms would be true, then the results would be true, right? But there are other people, like Justin would say, look, you're doing physics. You're talking about the standard model of particle physics, and your physics works, right? Like you think that your theory is going to keep working. So that only makes sense if you think there's some fundamental consistency in the mathematical tools that you're using to describe that theory. But guess what? You can't prove consistency. Professor Gödel showed that to us a long time ago. So probably you're assuming that your mathematical tools are consistent. And if that's true, how do you know? How in the world could you know that they're consistent if you don't think that they latch onto something real about the world? And I honestly don't know what to say about that. I want to say, well, I want to avoid the question by saying, look, tables and chairs I can bump into. They have a causal impact in the world, as do electrons and protons. The number 3 I use to talk about the world, but it has no causal impact. It doesn't, I don't bump into the number 3, either literally or metaphorically. So it's not real in the same kind of way as the physical stuff of the world is. Justin sort of browbeat me into writing one little paper on this, and I called it Reality Realism. And going back to, is the wave function real? I tried to make the case that, and I tried to be very honest, this is not as someone who is a professional philosopher of math in any sense, but someone who has done physics as a working physicist. And my attitude is, reality is real. The real world is real, the physical world. And we discover it by doing experiments, by using empirical techniques, and we describe it using mathematics and various other forms. But it is itself. It is just reality. And we can learn about it, but don't try to give extra things the status of reality other than the physical world.
Speaking of Quine, who you mentioned with the epistemology naturalized paper, he was also a nominalist at the beginning of his career, but then he reluctantly began to admit mathematical objects into his ontology of the universe because of what have become known as indispensability arguments for mathematical objects. So what he might have said, though I am reluctant to try to put words into Quine's mouth, are that just as the unobservable electrons and quarks and protons are confirmed by the standard model of particle physics, the mathematical objects that are required or in the formulation of the theories that are quantified over are also confirmed. But this, I take it, is a line of reasoning that you will struggle to resist.
I will struggle to resist it. Number one, it's not obvious that you actually need various mathematical objects versus they're just super convenient. I know that Hartree Field, for example, wrote a whole book about physics without mathematics. Apparently, people bought it thinking that it was like a popular physics book without any math in it, but that's not what it was. It was a very highbrow mathematical logic book. But number two, it's not the same. The fact that we use math to describe the world proves that even if it were true, all that proves to me is that we need math to describe the world, not that the math really exists. Not that the mathematical objects really exist in the same way. So, and again, and what makes me think about this is like, what about, the continuum hypothesis? So here is, for those of you who don't know, a conjecture or a hypothesis in the foundations of mathematics. We know on the basis of standard arithmetic and number theory that the number of integers is infinite. The number of real numbers is also infinite, but Cantor proved that the number of real numbers is clearly bigger in a very real sense. It's a bigger infinity than the number of integers. The question is, are there any other infinities that are in between the set of real numbers and the set of integers? We don't know. And well, it's not that we don't know. You can posit that as an axiom and build perfectly good mathematical structures on that basis, or posit that it's not true as an axiom and build perfectly good mathematical structures on that basis. So is that number that is in between the cardinality of the reals and the cardinality of the integers real? I don't see how an argument like Quine's would affect that.
Problems like this point some philosophers of math, like Joel David Hampkins, currently at Notre Dame, to posit this massive mathematical multiverse in which there are different set theoretic universes where these different systems of axioms sort of describe the set theoretic universe in question. So there are universes where the continuum hypothesis is settled one way, universes where it's settled another way.
Yeah, and I'm extremely sympathetic to that. That makes sense to me. But
you're sympathetic to it? So you want to admit that there are these universes of mathematics out there?
None of these universes are real in the sense that the real physical universe is there, but I want to be a pluralist about the foundations of mathematics. I don't think you're going to find the right one. If we talk to someone like Tim Maudlin, who again is a philosopher of physics, not of mathematics, but he will say, no, there's something called the integers. And you can prove that your axiomatic system allows for different models, the standard integers and the other integers, but that just means that's because there are truths about the integers that your axioms will never capture. But there are still truths about the integers because the integers are real, he would say. And I think that's what Hampkins and I would want to say, no, that's just not actually the case.
I think actually Joel would be much more like Gödel, who believes that it's not a physical thing, but there is a set theoretic universe out there. I mean, when one of the times that Joel and I spoke, he picked up a mug on his desk and he said, "This mug is very perplexing to me. Is it a field? Is it a wave function? Is it protons? I really have no idea what it means for this mug to exist. But on the other hand, I know so much quite concretely about the empty set, about zero, so that I am very certain about the empty set's existence, which is kind of confusing in a way, but he's much more confident about the empty set's existence than he is about the mug. So I think he's much more concrete in a sense. I mean, these are confusing issues to talk about, but he's much more invested in the concrete existence of these.
So I'm going to have him on my podcast. He's already scheduled, so I'll talk to him about these things. But you can fail to understand all the details in the coffee mug, and you can understand everything there is about the empty set. I'm still happier if you tell me you're going to throw the empty set at my head than if you tell me you're going to throw the coffee mug at my head.